Dave, we know that adaptation is a global challenge, but can you tell us some of the specific challenges facing the Southeast Asia region?
Sure, Georgie. Southeast Asia is a region that's highly exposed to climate impact. I'll just give you some dimensions and numbers behind this. So a recent Swiss Re report looked at 48 largest economies in the world that account for 90% of global GDP. The top 5 countries, out of the top 5 countries that are most exposed, 4 of them are in Southeast Asia. And so what does this mean? It means that the impacts of sea level rise, storms, extreme heat, impact on water systems and drought is heavily impacting the Southeast Asia region. You have countries with many coastal communities. You have highly vulnerable populations that are below or close to the poverty line, and they're highly susceptible to the impacts of climate change. So it's a region that is one where ANR, adaptation and resilience, should be high on the agenda for both the public and private sector.
What are the implications of such a grim outlook for the region?
Well, the first implication is that raising it up on the agenda for the public and private sector starts with really understanding this and planning for it. So understanding what are the hazards that are going to be impacting the various parts of the region, what are the impacts this is going to have on communities, on their local economies, on the natural ecosystems, and importantly, this region is very well interconnected. What are the cross-border implications that this will have for the region in terms of displaced populations, as an example, or impacts on critical supply chains that would impact one country that will have knock-on impacts for the rest of the region. So, because of the highly interconnected nature of the region, just starting with understanding the risks and the impacts, understanding how this impacts the communities, the local economies, and what are the options that countries have with the limited resources that they have at their disposal to start taking action. That's really the immediate implication.
What are the key challenges to building resilience in the region?
Well, there are a couple of key challenges. One is that there is a lot of data available, but being able to bring this together and create a line of sight and transparency on what are the hazards and what are the impacts is one issue. The other is having sufficient technical capacity to support national governments, regional, local governments, cities to bring climate science, analytics, connect that to socioeconomic outcomes and understand the different trade-offs. This is another challenge, having the technical capacity to support this. And finally, I would say that this is an issue that impacts multiple parts of the economy, the society, and a country. So bringing connectivity between the national agenda and the policy down to local considerations, connecting that up, and connecting up across sectors, because the impacts doesn't discriminate, right? It cuts across, sectors of the economy. Is another aspect of bringing that governance, the policy frameworks in place to create that connectivity, both vertically and horizontally within a country.
Can you tell me a little bit about the work of BCG in the region?
So we've been working with national and regional governments to bring together climate science and analytics to understand the various climate risks and the impacts this will have on the local economy, starting with impacts on population, vulnerable populations, understanding the impact this will have on critical sectors of the economy, how that impacts jobs, livelihoods, how this impacts critical infrastructure, and also understanding how this then impacts broader areas of the system, such as health, water access, food security, and so on. So creating that transparency and visibility for governments and helping them make decisions on what responses they take and how they manage the trade-offs and deploy resources, both capacity and also funding, and using that also to be able to seek support outside of the country in terms of development aid in some areas.
Dave, thank you so much.